What are the challenges the Prime Minister faces trying to get this deal?
They're significant.
Today we're talking nation building projects. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Mark Carney doing an interview with his TV station where they spend a good 8 minutes talking about nation building projects. Mark Carney comes out and says the quiet part out loud that basically nothing's going to get done. He wants to have buy-in from absolutely everyone to build anything. We've also got an update on the Christian rock star who had his concerts canceled. It is getting crazy. He went to go perform and give a sermon at a church. Then people came after him. Now the police are barricading. It is insane. Got a bunch of other stuff here. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we got Table Salt saying, ask yourself, does the government of Canada always cater to 30,000 supply managed dairy workers in Canada at the expense of 650,000 mineral, aluminum, steel, canola, and mining workers? It's literally enshrined in law that they can't negotiate on dairy. I've been saying this so many times. Are we going to sacrifice all the other sectors for just the dairy industry? Right on the government of Canada's website, distribution of total milk quota by province. What we're seeing here is the reason why Mark Carney is not making a deal with Donald Trump. The supply management, all of it is sitting in Ontario and Quebec. There's big money involved. People don't want their precious, very expensive quotas to be affected. Mark Carney's not doing a deal for Canadians. He's doing it for his rich friends who are connected to this nonsense. Got quite the little update here. So this originally posted on the IRCC account here. This is the Immigration and Refugee Citizenship Canada wing of the government. It says we've announced more than $3.2 billion over the next 3 years across more than 520 organizations outside of Quebec to improve integration of newcomers. $3.2 billion to help newcomers coming to Canada. Forget Canadians who sleep in tents. The Liberal government does not care about the Canadian population that pays taxes. $3.2 billion for more newcomers. When our healthcare, real estate, everything is bursting at the seams, so let's bring in more people, including into the job market and reduce labor shortages. That's right. The newcomers get help once again with Canadian tax dollars. Not a good look, guys. We're lost as a country. I don't think we can ever recover. I don't know at this point. We got to get rid of Carney pretty quick. Immigration is a privilege, not a right in Canada. So next up, we've got an update here. This is coming from Rebel News. So this is the Christian rock star, the MAGA star from America. So I believe he's a pastor, also singer, songwriter. He came up to do multiple different shows, I believe 6 or 7 shows, and all the cities canceled it because apparently Christians aren't loved in Canada anymore. I guess you're not allowed to be Christian in this country anymore. I don't know. I'm not Christian, but this seems like massive government overreach. So they canceled all his shows. So then he went to a church to perform, and then Antifa types bust in the door and throw a smoke thingy at him, at his head, and then the police lock down the facility. It gets crazier here. I can't play too much. We can show a bit of it here.
Hey, I should keep my eyes open. So I saw a guy who is clearly not a church person run down the aisle, a big fat guy in white, with really angry, and he took the smoke bombs out of his pockets and lit them on the side inside of the church during mid-worship song, and then chucked them right at my head. And I dodged him, thankfully, and picked him up. And you know what? I'm so proud of the church here. They didn't stop for a minute. They kept worshiping. Somebody ran out with them, and of course, the police just watched. But yeah, it was not something you normally see in church. Hopefully this is not the norm in Canada in 2025.
So I can show a few stills here. YouTube doesn't like it when I show these guys too often, but so the police standing outside doing a whole lot of nothing. Once again, more nothing. They essentially locked down the building. And here's a shot from inside. So this guy grabbed the smoky thing and ran it outside because it was still going off, giving off this pink smoke. And then he chucks it outside and gets rid of it back out here. And you can see this is the outside scene. So you can see who did this. Are we surprised? No. And here's the scene from the inside. So we can't have that music, but some people leaving because there's too much smoke in the air, some people staying. Is this what Canada is now, where Christianity is not allowed? The police don't defend Christians? I can't believe what I'm seeing. Two-tier policing. Yeah, I mean, the question is now, is it safe for Christians to live in Montreal? This should concern everyone. It should. It's outrageous too. You'll see some of these accounts in here protecting these actions, like this ridiculous account. Next up, we got a long segment here. Mark Carney doing this interview, which is important because it says a lot. He talks about major infrastructure, major nation building projects, this one with APTN News. This interview starts with him talking about Energy East. And just listen to this. He does not want to do any project unless there's full buy-in from everyone.
Because
Energy East is a name for a pipeline going across the country. It was a proposal of more than a decade ago. You're familiar with it. A number of people watching are familiar with it. And I get asked, are you going to support it? I'm like, well, it's not my decision. There's the provinces. There are the series of First Nations that would be affected by it. Then there's, who's going to buy there's lots of potential advantages to a project like that. But people have to be behind that. And part of the question is, if not that, what else might they be behind? And I'll give an example, if I may. And Premier Canoe, he said this publicly and had discussions with him yesterday about this. One of the things that he looks at, and again, this is about building the country, is what's called a coast-to-coast-to-coast energy corridor, which links from Manitoba through to BC, up through the Northwest Territories, Yukon, and a spur to Yukon, and then to Nunavut. And, and also does in a way, and this is, again, part of their thinking, Manitoba government's thinking, which I'm very supportive of, is in a way where there is Indigenous ownership from the start and at the core of the corporation that would help to build this. Now,
why is Indigenous ownership at the foundation? It's the most important thing when an Indigenous population is 5% of Canada. We're in quite the times when we spend $32 billion a year for First Nations, corrupt Indian chiefs not divvying out that money properly to their own bands in certain areas. And then there's constant cries for reconciliation when there's already been $600-700 billion paid. There's land deals made. Back in the day, the land was given up for technology, roads, etc., all of it. And now there's cries to give land back. And now Indigenous have to prosper on everything when the 95% of taxpayers paying for everything. How about talking about all Canadians, not just the 5% Indigenous? How about all of us? We all deserve to prosper, not just making sure Indigenous are enriched by this. And which Indigenous? Is it just the corrupt Indian chiefs who get to stuff their pockets once again? Or do all the band members, the ones using propane through the winter, do they get to prosper? I don't think so.
I'm going to use that as a chance to make a point, which one of the signature elements of our approach, the federal government's approach on these nation building projects has been, yes, aligned with the interests of Indigenous people. It has to be much more than just being aligned. It has to be that there is large equity ownership in these projects. And one of the things we will do is to basically finance that equity ownership because we don't want to have a situation where something's in the interests of the rights holders or modern treaty groups in their interests, but they don't have the money to help make it happen. And that's part of the way we can help. But it always starts with what's in their interests and what do they want to do.
What is this guy up to? Is there Brookfield financing coming through to Indigenous for these projects? What is he up to? There's more to this than we see right now.
One specific project that comes up often is the Ring of Fire in Ontario, Northern Ontario. Premier Doug Ford willing to drive his own bulldozer up there. He says, I've been reporting on the Ring of Fire for almost 20 years now. I don't think it's any further along than it was back then. Multinational companies have died during that time over that project. You have 2 nations or so that are supportive of it, but you have about 7 or 9 that are around there now that have filed legal challenges against this legislation.
Yeah, look, I think there's a real lesson in some of these situations. I mean, in some cases it can be a specific project, and I'm not saying the Ring of Fire is a bad project, but in other cases it's been an attitude which says we'll move forward with a project at all costs, or even if everyone else isn't on side. That's not the attitude I take. I take the attitude of let's find the projects that people are getting behind. Let's make sure that they aren't just supportive of it and it isn't just jobs at the time that whatever the project is being built. It's in ongoing jobs, but it's ongoing economic interests as true owners. And
Canada is struggling for jobs right now. This guy wants to make sure everyone's on board. Everyone has a say. Nothing's going to get built in our country ever.
And that's what's possible. Now, there are models for the Ring of Fire that could work that way. There is not a model that doesn't work that way, to put it in the double negative if I can. Right. The federal government won't be involved if it's not working that way. If it doesn't have the support, doesn't have the equity ownership. And look, Let's see what's possible on those terms, and then we can see things move forward, or whether or not things move forward. I don't think things are going to move forward. In fact, they're not, certainly with the federal government, they're not going to move forward unless they have those elements.
Are you concerned that
They're not going to move forward regardless. You look at a country that is able to build these projects the fastest, it's China, because through their dictatorship, they just decide everything. And I think that's too far, obviously. I actually made a video back on my other channel that got deleted of a radar dish, the biggest one in the world that China built. They found the perfect bowl inside these mountains, this basin, and there's a little village in there. And what did China do? They just went in there and kicked everyone out. They relocated them into the city. They stole their entire area, demolished their village, and built this giant radar dish. When it comes down to it, that works, that strategy for getting things done the fastest. We don't need to go that far, but we do need to have a prime minister that has a backbone and says, hey, I'm going to decide that we need to build a pipeline across this country to bring prosperity, versus asking every single person, hey, are you okay with this? Are you okay with this? It's never going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. You have to have a bit of a spine, Carney, to get anything done. The only projects you're going to see him get done are ones related to carbon capture.
this is just one legal challenge? Are you concerned that once these projects are made public, that financing starts going into them, that they'll be met with further lawsuits or blockades?
Look, again, it's a question of who you have behind. If you're building out an energy corridor, energy and trade corridor to Grays Bay Point, it's on my mind because of where we are. If we're doing that, then you've got to have lined up that support for it. Now, who's going to challenge it? If you have the support of those who are affected, I mean, yes, somebody, people can always launch lawsuits, but the question is, do you have the positive support? And Dennis, I'm going to emphasize this. This is an enormous vista that we've got here. It is an absolutely enormous country with tremendous potential and opportunities. We have done too little, not too much. And what I hear directly from rights holders, directly from chiefs across the country, is a bunch of great ideas.
Right.
Okay. We haven't even started the consultation process about which projects are.
They haven't even started it. What has he heard from rights holders, from chiefs? How about from business owners? How about from the 95% of Canadians that pay for everything? They never mention this. They love taking our money, but they do not like us. Mark Carney will say and do anything possible to take advantage of Liberal voters. When it comes time to kick them to the curb, they're gone. I mean, that's what you're seeing, 60,000 jobs being cut. Mark Carney does not care about Canadians. He's doing everything possible to put forward his grand Brookfield plan here. There's no limit to the amount of lies this guy will tell.
But I'm aware of, and we're aware of, huge potential. My job, the job of the premiers, the job of others, is to convert those great ideas as part of a process to making decisions after extensive consultation that these are the potential projects of national interest, and then to go from that to attach the right conditions around the development of those projects, and including environmental, local services and economic benefits, ownership conditions, other elements, attach those conditions, labor conditions as well, so those projects can be built. And that process goes forward.
This sounds like multiple years in the making. This guy's going to spend 10 years to build a simple one-lane highway somewhere.
One thing we're committed to as the federal government, the new federal government, is we will do our work in a timely way. When those conditions start to come together, we're not going to be the one that delays the thing for 10 or 15 years. I'm afraid we have been the ones that have delayed good ideas for 10 or 15 years. And that's part of what we're going to stop.
Any of those ones that were delayed for 10 and 15 years come to mind that you'd like to resurrect?
I'm giving you the same answer, but that's because it's the part of the approach. It's for others to advocate and support. Because if it's not, the federal government is not pulling projects. We're not trying to create projects. We're not trying to push certain ideas and priorities.
We're not trying to push certain ideas and priorities. I'm sorry, but you guys are pushing EV mandate on Canadians. Are you kidding me? That's all they do is push things on Canadians. What an absolute crock. I can't believe he just said that. They're literally forcing Canadians to buy electric vehicles when our grid can't even support them. Up 20%, mandated 20% next year. We're not forcing anything. No.
But what we're going to do is we're going to accelerate and reinforce and support those projects that really do have support. And, it's interesting. I mean, you've asked on a variety of things, but
you're wondering now, what projects are those? He gives a quick little glimpse here.
Sometimes this whole thing gets reduced down to pipelines.
Yeah.
No, we're talking about, yes, pipelines. But ports. We're talking about green energy. We're talking about carbon capture. We're talking...
Ding, 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 carbon capture. He loves just slipping this in there because he wants to make sure it's not a surprise. Just throw in the carbon capture here and there. Spend some money on pulling carbon out of the air. What a waste of money. You guys want some carbon out of the air? Plant some trees. Justin Trudeau promised that. He didn't deliver on that. There you go. That's your carbon capture right there.
Potentially about data centers and artificial intelligence. We're talking about in Northwest Territories right here, one of the nation building projects potentially, and the Premier has been an advocate for this. And again, the Premier is being very careful and others are being very careful to see whether there is the support of the rights holders, but is Mackenzie Valley Highway to Norman Wells, which actually brings economic benefit. It brings direct social benefit, I can put it that way. And, you know, it can help with our national security as well. So it's a wide range of potential projects. And that's what's exciting about it. We won't be able to do everything, to state the obvious, and or at least not everything immediately. So we're setting up a process where things are positively advocated. They've got support. And then we get behind them and move them forward.
Here's a...
This is amazing. He's not going to do anything. It's a whole lot of talk, zero action. He should already have one project on the go right now. There should be one win in the process, something simple, something that already has environmental approval and all that stuff. So there's no excuses, and there should just be shovels in the ground, whatever that may be. This guy's going to spend years telling Canadians he's going to do something. He's never going to do anything. Wow, the amount of propaganda and bots surrounding Mark Carney, everything he does is truly dystopian. I can't believe how blind people are to Carney. Just crazy. I'm shocked by it too. This comment here is hilarious. It's also sad. It's got 37 thumbs up. You can hate Carney, that's totally fair, but to call him Trudeau 2.0 or worse than JT is preposterous. Mark Carney has 95% of his investments in America. He's Canada's biggest tax dodger in Canadian history. The guy lied during the election multiple times. There's so many lies. We're just finding out about his lies now. I feel like we actually had someone from the top of the country who cares more than just cultural issues. This is so sad. What is wrong with these people? They can't see what's right in front of their face. You guys voted for a greedy banker that fleeced you. Talk is talk, action is action. We need real action to unchain our resources, unleash Canada's resource-based economy. If we don't fix our course, our country will be in real trouble. Our country's already in real trouble. Moving ahead, we've got Scott Reid talking on the whole Trump situation that happened yesterday. Trump basically saying there's no more talks going on with Carney.
Can we read into this potential delay past the August 1st deadline, or is this Trump being Trump?
It's pretty hard to not read this as a negative for voting sign. I suppose if we want to be optimistic, we could say this could just be Trump posturing in advance of a deadline, doing his best to put Canada up against the wall, try to secure the best possible terms of a deal from his perspective. But there's almost a tone of disengagement. And when you put it in the broader context of what the White House has been focused on, securing details with a series of Asian nations, working on the EU deal, it does look as though Trump has other partners, other options available to him in terms of securing deals and closing deals. And so it just may very well be that Trump doesn't regard this as a priority unless he can get everything and anything he wishes, which would be awfully difficult for the Canadians to agree to.
Making some positive
But should we not be considered a priority? I mean, we're the top trading partner with them.
Yeah, precisely. We should be considered a priority in that sense. But
not only should we be considered priority, we have way more negotiating power. The fact that he can't make a deal just proves he's an absolute loser and doesn't know how to negotiate. Or he's protecting his investments and his friends' lucrative businesses.
I think in many respects, because we're the top trading partner, because we have so much unfettered access to the American market already, you hear from the Americans and they talk about this. They say, well, everything is already covered by Canada, U.S., Mexico free trade agreement. So, I think in some ways, maybe that, works to our contrary because, they kind of shrug their shoulders and say, whatever deal we get is not going to give us the same suite of duties and revenues that we'll get if we do a deal with the likes of Japan, Malaysia, the EU. So you can read it both ways.
What are the challenges the Prime Minister faces trying to get this deal?
They're significant. I mean, we are really getting into a tough patch, even if what happens is that the deadline is erased once again, and so talks continue on. It's a discouraging development. And so at some point, it really takes you to a tough political decision. Do we take a bad deal because it's the best deal available, or do we hold firm and allow the talks to completely end? And here's the X factor. Will the alternative of having no talks at all, will talks failing mean that we just get the status quo? Or might Trump, in a peak of anger, say, I'm going to apply tariffs to a whole pile of industries that are actually already CUSMA compliant. I don't care. I don't get.
That's exactly it. That can happen. That's why I've been saying they need to offer a deal to Trump that is so much better than all the other ones that Trump has seen, and make a deal and just get away from the situation. Donald Trump's getting wrapped up in the Joffrey Eggstein stuff right now. He clearly has ties with him. There's no doubt about that. There's footage of him. There's reports and leaks and stuff that's just tying the two closer together. Trump doesn't like it. He's highly agitated right now. The deal needed to be done weeks ago, because now that this is blowing up, Trump doesn't want to deal with this. He's clearly in a bad mood because of Joffrey Eggstein stuff. Carney missed his opportunity, but then again, did Carney really care? Does it matter to him? He's invested in America. It doesn't affect him.
Give a darn about the free trade agreement that exists. I'm going to apply duties there. And anyone who believes that he ought not to, or wouldn't do that, or legally can't do that, well, we see him do things out of belligerence all the time. So, I mean, the big concern for the prime minister isn't just that he may not get a deal that he likes, but that he may end up in a much worse place with duties being applied to all sorts of industries and sectors.
And what kind of political repercussions could we see for the prime minister if there's no deal or if it goes that way, one of those routes?
Well, you're suddenly going to see a lot of pressure with people saying, on the one hand, well, wait a second, we thought we hired you to get this job done. Now, maybe people will give the prime minister credit and say, obviously, there's no dealing with a guy like Donald Trump, and cut him some slack. But even still, if there's no deal whatsoever and if tariffs come into effect, there's going to be some economic fallout. Prime minister and premiers will have to move swiftly to work jointly to put in place some support programs for workers that will be particularly affected in industries that will be particularly affected. But beyond that, if we do determine that the only deal available is one that's imperfect, then there's a political risk that people will criticize them for being too soft and say, well, this is the furthest thing from elbows up. So he has to navigate those risks. And that's why I think you've seen him work so carefully to keep the premiers on board, because he does want to keep a united front wherever we end up August 1st or sometime thereafter.
Okay.
The United Front gives Carney more power, but it doesn't seem to matter because Carney won't budge on supply management. That's what it seems like. He will not budge on that. And it's clear the Trump administration want that as part of the deal. That's why there's no deal going on here. That's what I think is going on. Raise the price of electricity, petroleum, potash, and uranium. Yeah, unfortunately, Trump will then just double the tariffs. You can't do that when you don't have the power. When you have a little bit of power, try to squeeze a little bit. Trump will just come back and say, you know what, 35% tariffs, that's not enough. We're going to make it 60% tariffs.